Hey everyone, Harry here to talk about Judge Aileen Cannon is back and jumps right into the middle of the fray over the question whether and when to release the Jack Smith final report. That is a report that Smith is preparing. The regulations require him to do it and provide it to the Attorney General. They're otherwise fairly bare bones and say he's supposed to explain his prosecutorial and declination decisions, what the cases and charges he decided to bring, what cases and charges he decided not to. Based on that mandate, Smith, I think, could be preparing anything short or long, but my very strong guess is it is long and voluminous, and that's really important because with Trump's having slipped the noose through the election, it's going to be the only presentation of all the evidence that we are likely to hear. Certainly, things are not going to be rolled out against Trump in a federal court. So this is the document for history, the equivalent of the January 6th report or the 9/11 report that lays out serious crimes, including crimes against the Constitution by Donald Trump. Okay. The department has said it will not release the Smith report before Friday. And in fact, it hasn't committed to releasing the entire report. What Merrick Garland has said is he inclines to release it in some form. I think it's likely that he's going to release the entire thing. However, once he leaves the department, that becomes the property, or certainly within the control of who's ever there, and that means Trump's minions, and who knows if literally it ever sees the light of day. There's these whole series of pitched battles now in which Trump is essentially trying to erase history and keep all the kind of evidence of what he did, especially at January 6th, where he continues to insist, half-heartedly maybe, but that he won the election, it was rigged, and certainly to try to smother from the public record all the details of his guilt that Smith assembled. Remember down in Mar-a-Lago with their very, very, very sympathetic judge, Aileen Cannon, appointed by Trump at the very end of his first term, who has issued a series of rulings anywhere from tenuous to indefensible in his favor. She has some hold on the case by virtue of her having ruled as she did. The case was on her docket. Then she ruled, as you'll remember, that Jack Smith doesn't have authority to proceed, that the grants of authority that the DOJ have been relying on are actually inadequate. She's completely out of step with courts dating back decades, including the U.S. Supreme Court. But remember, that ruling now is on appeal in the 11th Circuit. But after it would rule, the 11th Circuit could send the case back to her, probably would send the case back to her unless she is recused based on her rulings to date and how they've been in conflict with the law. But there's still a toehold for her to issue rulings in the case, or at least that is what she's done, because remember, she dismisses the case as to all three defendants. That's up on appeal. The DOJ then, after Trump's election, seeks a dismissal as to Trump, but not as to the other two, the kind of henchmen who helped Trump out, Walt Nauta, Carlos de Oliveira. So they, unsurprisingly, run to her and say, enjoin the Department of Justice from releasing Smith's report. That would create irreparable injury to Nauta and de Oliveira because Smith doesn't have authority to act. And there's a whole 18-page brief filed there to tell her, their most friendly court, to shut it down. In the meantime, they file similar claim in the 11th Circuit, because that's where the case is now pending, because the 11th Circuit is deciding whether to reverse her on appeal. But they say, 11th Circuit, do the same thing. That we're asking the same of you as we've asked of Judge Cannon, but we're also asking you not to issue your decision reviewing Cannon's dismissal. We want a stay of that as well for not very well-defined reasons. And what they're looking to do, what they've asked Cannon in particular, is they want the 11th Circuit to send it back to her, stay their decision on whether the dismissal was sound, and send the case back to her so she can enter the emergency relief, that is, order the department not to release the final report. So that's the game here, and they've gone to, of course, their most friendly umpire, and it's a kind of an ironic image when it's Judge Cannon, but they're looking to have her shut it down, and she has, at least temporarily. She's issued an order saying, DOJ, you may not release this report until the 11th Circuit has responded to the request for emergency relief that Nauta and De Oliveira have filed with them, and until 3 days after you're enjoined. Now, is that a legal order? It's very tricky. She doesn't have the case now, and what's her jurisdiction for doing it? Nevertheless, what's likely to happen is a whole kind of scrum in very frenetic fashion, and what will be pivotal is what the 11th Circuit does. They've been asked also to grant this emergency relief. If they say the emergency relief is not appropriate, Cannon can't just ignore that. They'll tell her what to do. On the other hand, the state of the case right now, because it's come up from Cannon, is that the special counsel doesn't have authority to act, and that certainly would include issuing a final report. Now, even if he doesn't, there may be other ways in which the report can be reframed, served up to Garland, but that will be sort of down the line. We're in this very sort of fast-moving, almost improvisational mode that's going to be playing out over the next few days. It could force the 11th Circuit to be deciding on the merits, the decision that's been pending with them for some time, namely whether Cannon got it wrong when she dismissed the case. If they decide that, then the motion for emergency relief really loses its force, because it is premised on the idea that it's illegal for Jack Smith to act. Okay, so tangled web we weave, right? But Cannon says don't do anything until the 11th Circuit acts. They've asked the 11th Circuit to just put the case on ice and send it back down to Cannon. That would be a really bad development, because it would give her time and to do mischief, while the state of the case is that there's no authority, and she could very possibly delay things at least enough into January 20th, when Garland would lose any power to act. On the other hand, the 11th Circuit knows all this, knows Cannon's track record, may want to decide the emergency motion for itself. To do it, it's possible to not to do it without deciding the underlying issue of Smith's authority, but it's tricky for them. If he doesn't have authority, the emergency relief seems warranted. So they may be pushed to that. But keep your eye first on the 11th Circuit. Cannon, you can just assume, will do whatever she can to delay and serve Trump's interests, even though it's only Nauta and De Oliveira who are before her. And we have, for now, her dismissal. That is a big kind of obstacle in the middle of the case. So, will the 11th Circuit reverse Cannon and therefore clear the field for the emergency motion? Will it decide the emergency motion in some way, even without her? That is the next thing to happen in what is now suddenly another race to the finish line between the motion for emergency relief and the ever-looming deadline of January 20th, when power shifts to the Trump administration. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.